my name is Amy.
And my name is Rachel.
Today we are going to present the podcast Interactive Teaching Model.
In this segment, we will show you a bad version and a good version for each of the three following strategies: organization, level presented, and pace.
Don't worry, we will go over exactly what makes them bad and good so you will be prepared when you're the one teaching in the classroom.
Our first teaching strategy we will cover today is organization.
Today we will discuss, what did we talk about last class? Can anyone tell me?
Solving for the missing variables.
Oh, you're right. Okay. So today, factoring polynomials.
Wait, excuse me, are we going to be going over the homework? I had a few questions.
Well, maybe I guess just one question. We're limited on time.
I also had some questions in the homework and they were really difficult.
Well, if there's so many questions, you guys have to see me after class. I cannot and will not slow down the class. There's too many concepts to go over.
Okay, I guess we'll come back later.
After class.
Perfect. Okay, great. So today, factoring polynomials.
What?
Let me introduce the lesson before you ask any questions. I may answer the questions as I go through the lesson. So, when factoring polynomials, factoring numbers and factoring polynomials are similar concepts, except when we factor numbers, we're just dividing out the number. When we factor polynomials, we're dividing out numbers and dividing out variables, okay?
I still don't get it.
No,
Not one bit.
Oof, that wasn't so great, was it?
Not at all. It's clear that the teacher did not have an exact lesson in mind, and she wasn't organized with her objectives.
She was going way too fast without asking any questions about whether or not the students understood the material. Also, there was hardly any dialogue between teacher and student.
Now let's take a look at a good example of organization.
Will everyone please take out their homework and place it on their desk? And while you're doing that, can someone please recap what did we talk about last class?
Solving equations?
Excellent. And who can tell me what are some components that make up an equation?
A variable.
Good. And a variable is?
The unknown, usually represented by a letter in the
Great.
equation.
I love it. In an equation, I heard you say that. Great. Okay. And any other components we can think of?
An equal sign.
Good. And if an equal sign isn't present in the equation, would it still be called an equation?
No, it would be an expression.
Great. Excellent. I love the way you guys understood the concepts. It really seemed like you got last lesson. So today, it'll be much easier for us to go through the topic. So before we move on, does anyone have any questions on the homework?
I did. Question number 6?
Question number 6. Can you tell me what it says?
Sure.
So since there's no other questions, we can move on to today's lesson, factoring polynomials.
Great.
I don't know, it still seems a little tricky.
It's okay, Rachel. Just breathe, and we'll go through several problems before I ask you to do some on your own.
But we only have 25 minutes. Is that going to be enough time?
Well, if we don't cover everything that I have planned, that's okay. What's important to me is that you guys understand the material.
This was so much better.
Absolutely. The teacher reviewed what was previously taught, so the current lesson made sense. She was organized about her objectives this time, slowed down, and asked questions.
I also really liked the balanced time of speaking and effective communication between teacher and student.
Let's take a look at an example of our next teaching strategy, level presented.
Hi class. Today we're going to learn about different types of tenses, and in grammar, tense refers to when the event occurred, and aspect is if the event is completed or not. So for example, in present tense, it's referred to the state and event and status that is not limited to time. Whereas past tense, it refers to an event that has been completed by the time of speaking.
I don't understand.
I don't get this either.
Okay, so for example, when you say I go home versus I went home, when you say I go home, it's a present tense, whereas when you say I went home, it's a past tense.
So if you're using the word go, do you add ed because it's past tense?
No, it's an irregular verb, so you say I went.
What about walk? Is walk an irregular verb? And what's a subordinate clause?
Well, we put ed and we use it as walked because it's not an irregular verb. You should know this by now.
Do we use a regular verb in simple tense?
only if it's past tense.
Oh no.
That wasn't good. The teacher quickly taught a lesson that clearly was confusing to the students.
Also, the teacher did not give enough time for the students to comprehend the concept of irregular verbs. When they were confused, the teacher just blamed the class in a disrespectful manner.
Why don't we now look at a good example of the level presented teaching strategy?
Hi class, so today we're going to learn about different types of tenses and irregular verbs. Does anybody know has anybody heard about tense? Can somebody tell me?
I've heard of past and present tense, but I don't know much about them.
Good. So we have tense, and to begin with, tense is something that tells you when the event occurred. And inside of tense, we have simple present tense, which is an action, event, or state that is not limited to time. Okay, so tense tells us when the event occurred, and present tense is something that's going on right now, and past tense refers to something that had already happened in the past before the time of speaking. Now, you have to be very careful because in terms of when you use which verb, tense can change. Now, can you say, yesterday I eat spaghetti?
No, that sounds a bit strange.
Yeah, right? So we know that yesterday is past tense and eat is present tense. So if we have past tense and present tense in the same sentence, it just wouldn't make any sense. Now, please remember that verbs receives tense. And in order for you to use the verbs in the sentence, you have to be very careful because sometimes we use irregular verbs.
Excuse me, what are irregular verbs?
Very good question. So irregular verbs are the ones that does not follow general rules. For example, can somebody tell me what the past tense of walk is? Yes.
Walked.
Very good. What about a past tense of eat?
Oh, eated.
Okay, so you might have thought that it was eaten because we usually put ed at the end of a verb to tell that it's a past tense. Well, for this word eat, we say it ate as past tense because this is an irregular verb. And you have to be very careful which irregular verbs to choose. Now, can somebody give me some examples of other irregular verbs? Yes?
Swam.
Swam, good.
Oh, sang.
Sang, excellent. So those are all irregular verbs. Now, I want you to make one sentence for regular verbs and one sentence with irregular verbs. Okay? Then we will go over them after, and then we will continue with our class.
This was a very good example. The teacher made sure the information was challenging enough so that the students' comprehension would fall in the middle of the normal distribution curve.
Yes. Also, the teacher makes sure that she is simplifying confusing concepts and difficult material for the students.
I guess this means it's time to focus on our final teaching strategy, pace.
Here is a bad example. Okay, class, let's look at the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. You're in college now, right? So you should know what figurative language is, and you should know what metaphors are. Can someone tell me what the author is trying to portray?
I'm so lost.
If you read it over again, it will be clear.
Can you read it over again?
Read it over again.
I just don't get what when the poet says, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken and stoop and build them with worn out tools.
Read it one more time.
Oh wait, is he talking to his son? Because that's how the poem ends.
You should read it over again. You're in college now. Yikes.
I know, it wasn't good at all. The teacher is being rude and not acknowledging the difficulty students of each proficiency level are having. In fact, she's not acknowledging any difficulties at all.
The teacher is being lazy and not doing anything to help her students. Can we take a look at a good example of this type of teaching strategy?
Let's do it. Here it goes.
Okay, class, let's take a look at the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. Poems are a specific genre, and they require a specific learning strategy that help you interpret the poem.
If shows a possibility, right?
Excellent. Let's take a look at the poem and notice that it's either a continuous type of poem or it's broken up into stanzas.
Oh, I did notice that there are 4 stanzas and each sentence starts with the word if.
Great observation. Let's check to see if this is what the author did intentionally. Let's get into groups and read the poem out loud to one another. Try to listen to your own voice, but if your own voice is distracting, have your partner read it out loud. Notice how the words sound.
Or watch the things you gave your life to, broken and stoop, and build them up with worn-out tools. I imagine this person in pain.
Great analysis. Your task now is to make 5 inferences to see what the author is trying to portray.
Kipling seems to be talking about the balance in one's life.
Oh, he sums up his advice in stanza 4, right?
Yes, this is an excellent class discussion. Much better.
Definitely. This time, the teacher showed better structure, explained better strategies, and gave out good instructions. Also, the teacher was much more encouraging.
I know. The teacher also succeeded in pacing well enough that the students had time to actually learn the material. She also paused enough to let the students comprehend the information being presented and to ask questions if they didn't.
Well, I think our job here is done. I hope you have enjoyed our presentation on bad and good examples of the following teaching strategies: organization, level presented, and pace.
We hope you can use what you have learned here when teaching in your own classrooms. Thank you for watching.